the goal, I think, even for me, I wanted to do it big. I wanted to make my parents proud, and it was unfortunate they never got to see the evolution of what I became or what I was going to become. So I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder of trying to make it.
Carlos Battey, better known as Jackie's Boy, lost both of his parents at a young age, a massive life hurdle that can disrupt even the best laid plans. However, Carlos took that loss and channeled it into his music, grinding, writing, and networking on the streets of LA. His hard work paid off, and after signing a deal with Universal and working with superstars of all types, he ultimately earned a Grammy for his work with Madonna. Carlos joins us today to talk about perseverance and motivation in the face of the greatest adversity life can throw at us. On this episode, The Big Break.
So yeah, let's just get started. So where are you calling us from today?
Right now I'm in Orlando, Florida. I'm kind of all over the place. So I spend my time in LA. I got a spot in LA and spend my time here in Orlando. So yeah.
All right. And, I'm not sure when exactly we'll have this released, but at the moment we are, like everyone else, sort of hunkered down a little bit with the current virus situation and whatnot. And how's that been for you so far? Has that been affecting you anyway, like positively, negatively, just in general, like the rest of us?
I would say, man, it's for the overall part, for the sacrifices we have to make to make sure that our communities and our people are safe. This is small, completely minor. I've played, charades for about 1 million times at this point with my family, but that's definitely not a big problem at all. I love, spending time with the family. And I think that this is, like I said, a small sacrifice to make for our advancement, in what we're trying to do here.
And just trying to get everything, back up to speed again and whatnot. We'll touch base on some other stuff later. I mean, there's a lot of really interesting developments related to the music industry in particular with this. And I want to talk to you about that as we kind of maybe get towards the later part of this podcast. But cool. Let's take ourselves away from the current situation just for a moment and look back a little bit in time. So I did a little bit of reading up on you and whatnot, found a couple of interviews you've done in the past and such. And am I right that you and I believe your brother were initially discovered while performing in Los Angeles somewhere? Is that correct?
Yeah. We got, seen singing on Hollywood Boulevard, Santa Monica Pier, the Promenade in Santa Monica as well. So yeah, starting out as street performers, kind of busking our way, in different streets and, just trying to make a living. And at that time we did, get an A&R from Atlantic Records who gave us a shot.
That's amazing to me. Like, I mean, I've seen people performing on, when I say performing on the streets, I mean that, in more the busking sort of way, just like finding a corner and doing your thing. Right.
Yeah.
And I never, it kind of really struck me that you were discovered by a record industry executive while doing that. I didn't think that actually happened.
Yeah, it's kind of like, like those movie kind of things. It's out of a movie where you see someone singing and they go, "Hey, you're a star." You know what I mean? And things just start happening. But I will say it was not overnight. It was 5 years of street performing, very blood, sweat, and tears, literally, of just, sleeping in cars and sleeping on studio floors and just, sleeping on the streets sometimes to just follow this dream and make some things happen for ourselves. So it was very, it was some rough times and it, wasn't overnight, but when things started to connect, it really did.
Yeah. Well, let's kind of go to the beginning of that. Like, how did you first get into music in general? Just like, even on an appreciation level, maybe where music's, meant something maybe a little bit more to you than it does to, your general, population.
Man, I would say, I don't know why, but I just always had this love for songwriting. I caught it very early of just watching people sing songs and wondering if they wrote them and how did they write something so special. One of my biggest influences was Babyface, and this is before I knew he, had the Face Records and all of these different things. I just loved the song Whip Appeal and some of his classic songs, and I'm like, man, he's a genius, and I just wanted to write songs like Babyface when I was coming up.
See,
So
that's really fascinating to me. Like, because I'm a music fan and I love listening to music. I've always been interested in music, but I've never, at no point did I ever think that I could write a song or even perform a song. I never made that leap to music as being something that I consumed and appreciated to something that I could actually contribute to. And so, like, was it? Was there a part where you realized that this was something that you could actually do, or maybe even before that, that it was something that you even wanted to try?
yeah, I mean, I love singing as well, and I was just always singing, and finding some excuse to to sing, whether that to be trying to impress girls or just just do something. And I think at the time music had a very early calling with me, and I remember telling my mom that I could sing, and she was like, really, kind of giving me the side eye, like, can you really sing? And I sung for her, and she was like, okay, you got something. And I tried out for a gospel choir, and I got the lead in one of the gospel choirs, and then also one of the leads at my school choir as well. So that really kind of just made me believe in myself and start to take things a little more seriously. And I think sometimes you kind of feel like, I don't know whether it's like you're meant to do it, but you just kind of feel like maybe you're a little more talented than maybe you thought. So, they started with that belief for sure.
Now, your performing name, I believe, if I got it right, is Jackie's Boy, correct?
Yes, right. Yeah.
Now that's based on your mother, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
My mom,
So how influential was she in giving you the confidence to pursue this?
honestly, man, she was extremely, influential. She was a person that would give it to me straight, let me know like, hey, if you want to do this, it takes hard work, it takes sacrifice, and you have to believe in yourself, and there's no shortcuts with it. You got to really go hard for it. So she was one of those people that just instilled in me about how, hard work, and, if you're really going to do it, you got to really do it. So, she didn't have the talent herself per se, but she definitely instilled hard work in me.
Right. So the work ethic, yeah, 'cause
Mm-hmm.
everyone, a lot of people have talent, but obviously the work. I think there's probably three things that we're going to be able to talk about here. Is one part is sort of the talent and how you use it. Two is the work you put into it, and three, there's going to be a little bit of luck involved, as I think we started off with a bit. So we'll get into all three of those areas. So
Right.
so when did this start becoming something that you were doing? I mean, and it was you and your brother at first too, right? You guys
Yeah.
were performing together and such. So what was you're from Georgia, correct?
Yeah, Savannah. So, yeah, I mean, back then it was, like I said, we bust out in Savannah too. There was a spot called River Street, and we would go out there Friday, Saturdays, and Sundays from about 7 p.m. till about midnight. And we would go and sing. And I mean, they had the best acoustics under this building, under the Hyatt. They had this little kind of drive thing where people can drive by. And man, it was so electrifying to be able to, get the kind of sound we got and have the people reacting the way they did. So I knew I always wanted to come to California. I actually met a friend of mine in high school named Justin Holly, who's a musician as well. And he was from Cali, and he always talked about how cool and glamorous LA was. So I was like, man, this could be a really cool, way to get out there. So, we had a plan to, come out to LA, and I came once by myself just to kind of figure it out with him. And then shortly after, me and my brother came out together after our parents passed away. And that was kind of the fuel to get us to like move on our dreams, because, in Savannah, we had nothing, tying us down, we just had our dream. And, when tragedy happens, you kind of put yourself into your work. And we just really just dove into this music thing full force.
Now, before you moved out to California, and back in Savannah, you're performing in this great acoustic spot on the street and whatnot.
Yeah.
Did you ever were you getting like at any point like paid venue gigs or by any chance, or was it still at that busking level?
Yeah, it was a little bit of both, right?
Okay.
Like sometimes, like what happens is we'll sing, and we'll catch somebody going, "Oh man, you sound so good. I like for you to sing at my daughter's birthday party," or I remember getting my first gig. I would call different restaurants myself and just say, "Hey, my name is Carlos, and I have a group, and we'd love to perform for your at your venues." And we knew we wasn't like I knew we weren't on a level like a Genuine or a Jagged Edge back in that day, but we knew that everybody needed entertainment. And I remember I got a few like, we're not interested. And I remember think maybe like the fifth person I called, it was a restaurant, a seafood restaurant. And they said, yeah, come through. So we went and we auditioned, and they loved us. And they said, hey, you guys got every Thursday night. So we did Thursday night, kind of entertainment while people were eating and stuff.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so you're doing this for a little bit, and then you decide just to go big, basically, right? Like pull up stakes and go out to California and really give it a shot out there. I mean, you didn't really have a super established foundation at that point, career wise, right? I mean, you're still in, really the earliest part of the aspirational stage at this point, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we just figured if it could work in Georgia, then it could work in California.
And now, were you singing your own songs? You guys writing your own songs, or were you guys singing covers?
It was both. Yeah, we did half and half. Well, I'll probably say 80% covers and then 20% of our original music. Yeah, we came out to LA with the idea of just saying, hey, if we did really well in Savannah, we could do really well in California, which we hit with a screeching halt, because that wasn't the case. I remember the first week we barely made anything. And it was, we got a little shell shocked, because we thought that, oh yeah, if you can sing, then you can sing anywhere, which partially was true, but there was a bit of more of a hustle that we had to understand and implement out in California.
So is that just a matter of just a lot more people in California doing the same thing compared to Savannah, or was there some other factor?
Yeah, well, that is the main one. If it's so much talent, people feel like you have to be doing something really, really great. And what we figured out, the formula to us was we tried a bit of a DJ approach or a mixtape approach, where we would cover several songs in a matter of 10 minutes compared to just doing one or two songs in a matter of 10 minutes. So the idea was to grab as many people as possible that are walking. So if you don't like this one song, then this next one's got to grab you. And if the next one don't grab you, then the next one after that is going to grab you.
Okay. And all this time as you're doing this, what's your goal here? Was it just to get a name for yourself? Were you selling, I don't know, tape, CDs, etc.? Were you hoping someone would notice? Like, what was the intent behind the activity?
Both. Yeah. We cut a demo in Georgia, and then we cut a demo in California as well. And the idea was, we sold our own material. So if you liked us enough, you pay $10 for our CD. We even used that going out to Vegas. I remember taking 500 CDs and going out to Las Vegas with no plan at all, and just basically saying we're going to sell out or we don't come back from Vegas. So we always had material ready. And the goal, I think, even for me, I wanted to do it big. I wanted to make my parents proud. And it was unfortunate they never got to see the evolution of what I became or what I was going to become. So I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder of trying to make it.
Okay. So I guess lastly, you mentioned the acoustics at the place where you performed back in Savannah. How did you decide where you performed in California?
We looked on the internet, very early on, and just looked up spots in California that were good, where they had a lot of people. I wouldn't even say they had street performing, just they had a lot of people. And then when we got here, we started asking people, "Hey, yo, where can we see entertainment?" We just drove around and
so you were looking for bodies at that point. You're like, where is there a mass number of people?
Yeah, we didn't care about the rules per se, or like, was it allowed? We just was like,
was it allowed? I'm curious about that. Was it actually allowed? Is that something that you guys could do, or did you guys get in trouble?
Oh yeah, we got in trouble a lot of times. I mean, for the first couple weeks, we needed a permit, and we didn't have one, and we didn't have the money to get one. It was like $50 for a permit, and we was like, well, what we're gonna do is avoid the cops and avoid the the people that give the tickets. So we just kind of worked in between and started singing wherever we could, and use that money to end up getting permits. But yeah, man, we broke the rules so much because it was just survival mode.
It's like they say, "Fake it till you make it." Maybe another way of putting it is like, "Break it till you make it." A lot.
Absolutely,
Right.
absolutely. I mean, I don't condone obviously follow the
Oh
rules,
no, I get it.
boys and girls, but I would, but I definitely say, when the rubber meets the road of like of sheer survival and trying to make it and how you're going to feed yourself, you get very innovative. And I think for us, it was like, we don't know what this place is going to be like, but let's just try it. We don't know what that place is going to be like. Let's just try it.
So, was there any point where you were thinking about quitting, going back?
Several times. Several times. Not in the sense of like, was I actually going to do it? Nah, but like, did I think about how things could be easier? Yes. After being out in California for about a year or two, I had my first daughter, Michaela, and being a single dad, there's a lot of pressure because you want the best life for your kid, and if you're out here, busking and not making as much as you think you could be making, then it kind of gets to you because you want a better life, and obviously the cost of living in Georgia was so much cheaper, and just there's family, and being in LA, I was all alone. I didn't have very much friends and didn't have very much people to call on to be there through the process. But whenever I felt that way, I would snap out of it and realize like it's going to work out eventually. Just stay with it. And in that 5 years, every year I was thinking about going back home. But, like I said, after that 5th year, my whole life changed. And
let's talk about that then. So what happened? You're performing one day and some guy walks up to you and says, "Hey, I'm with the record label. I want to sign you." Like, walk us through that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the nuts and bolts of it. A little prior to that is we met a young lady who was actually our manager as well. Her name was Rachel Noel. She spotted us first. And she said, "Hey, do you guys have a manager?" And I was like, "Nah." And she hired us for a party, I believe. I think it was a 4th of July party or something like that. And we did that. And that kind of helped like us kind of be noticed a little more as well. And then but even when we started doing things with her, we still kept going back to the pier. So one of the days going back to the pier, we meet a guy by the name of Brandon Kitchen, who's a dear friend to this day, who was a junior A&R for Atlantic Records. And he heard us sing and was like, "Yo, like you guys are switching songs like every minute or so. Y'all know everything. Do you guys write your own music?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course." And we gave him a CD and, all of that stuff. And I think he knew, like, I guess he figured because we sung so many songs, he figured, we have to be able to write something. So we built a relationship, and he's, from there.
Yeah. So now was he there because your manager suggested he go and check you guys out, or was it by chance?
No, two separate completely situations. He was just out there on a day, just hanging out, just enjoying. I think it was a Saturday, just enjoying the beach. And then he just came up to you. Now, at any point, did you doubt his veracity? Like, did you think, "Oh, this is some guy goofing"? Or yeah. Honestly, I mean, because LA has this way of making it seem urgent but not urgent at the same time. Like, you'll have people come up to you and go, "Oh man, this is great. I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that." And then when you hit them up the next day or a couple of days after, they go, "Who?" Like, "Oh, I did what?" I said, "What?" That's just how I feel like some people are in LA. Yes. And we had a couple of those. But this one felt different, and just the energy and the urgency felt different. And we exchanged numbers, and then he told me, he wanted to set up a meeting between us and his boss, which was a VP of A&R. And we took our first label meeting, so to speak.
All right. And so how did that, so what was that like? You walk in there, did you know what to expect? Did you know what you were going to be asked? Did you have to prepare? I mean, you just walk in there cold, be like, "I don't know what's going to happen." Like, that's kind of intimidating, I think.
Hell no, bro. We don't know nothing, bro. Taking mine, I said, guerrilla warfare, bro. We was just surviving. Like I said, we're just two guys who don't know nothing from nothing, but we do know music. So that
so
was
you
our
walk in there, and what happened? So what was the meeting? I mean, what did they do? Did you perform, or like what happened?
No. It was a thing where we sat down and talked with him, and he was like, my junior A&R said that you guys have some talent, and of course he had a little bit of a, what are these guys doing here? I'm used to bringing in, the big writers, the Makibas, the Rock Cities, the, what I'm saying, like these big writers, the Desmond Childs of the world. You find these guys on the pier. That was the kind of demeanor I feel like I was getting from him. And, he goes, all right, well, we played some demos. He goes, you guys can write, but I'd like to see if you can actually do this for real. So he set up a session for us, and Atlantic Records are notorious for doing writing and production sessions with, but just to see what comes out so they can pitch to their artists. So Flo Rida was the hot artist at the moment to create for. And he had the song Low, and he had a few other really big records. So he said, I'm going to give you guys some studio time and create something for him. We're looking for his next single. And, where these other big writers had, 6-hour studio time, 5-hour studio time, I think we had about 45 minutes, maybe 30 minutes.
Okay.
So it wasn't a very long time to create. And we went in there, and I came up with the idea of this hook called Sugar. And I kind of heard the melody in my head. I started humming the music humming the melody over the track. And then we wrote the song in maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, the chorus. And then he got it. The A&R got it and was like, yo, this is actually really good. And then 3 months later, the song was all over the radio, and it sold 2 million units.
That's amazing. So this guy hears you singing on the street. You go in for a meeting. You don't even like try to take one of your old established, a song you've already written and then try to tweak it a bit for Flo. You actually create something brand new right there in the studio in like a half an hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it worked. Man.
It worked. I think the reason why it worked is because, preparation is key, and I did record in studios in Savannah, Georgia. And back in the day, we didn't have a lot of money to record, to have hours and hours of studio time. We had enough for maybe 1 hour or maybe even 45 minutes. So, God bless the studio engineer who would just take whatever we could give him. And we learned to work, in very, crunch time situations. And I think that paid off when we were able to write that one for him.
That's interesting. Okay, so you did that one before we got on the radio here. You did the one song. He likes it. I'm sure they had to pitch it to Flo Rida to see if he wanted it and whatnot. So like all this time, did they sign you to any kind of like writing deal? Did they give you some advance funds? Like how are you surviving while this process is playing out?
Well, the funny thing about when you get a hit, or at least your first taste of a hit, people start coming out of the woodworks. The same guy who looked at us as kind of like scrubs was definitely offering us a publishing deal, and kind of the demeanor changed, and it wasn't just him. It was several publishers wanting to take me out to dinner and wanting to wine and dine for us to to be in there, to be in our business and be in our world of creation. And I went to every one of them. I ate all the free food. It was amazing. And I decided that I was going to go with the company that best suited my interests, which was Universal Music Publishing.
As a growing artist or songwriter, keeping royalties coming in is important for keeping the bills paid. It's also important to keep an eye on those royalty payments. A lot of people we worked with here at Royalty Exchange were having a tough time making sense of the royalties they were getting paid. So we built a free tool called Know Your Worth that automatically analyzes every royalty payment made on your music. It breaks it all down in an easy-to-understand analysis with some insights that would be impossible to find elsewhere. Plus, it connects you with the thousands of investors on Royalty Exchange and allows them to make you offers on your music. So far, musicians have raised over $1 million for new projects, new ventures, and a whole lot of other things just through the Know Your Worth app. If you're earning royalties, you should be keeping track of them, and Know Your Worth makes it easy. It only takes about 3 minutes to connect an account, and the tool will automatically update over time. Just visit worth.royaltyexchange.com or find the link in the show notes to get started. Now, let's get back to the interview.
And if you don't mind, if this is something you can get into, I'd love to understand how you came to determine that was the right company for you. Like, what were the factors that you were looking for? Because that's some heady stuff, man. Like, you talk through this process, 5 years, grinding it out. Now you've got all this big name activity, Atlantic, Universal. I don't even know who the others were, but like, that's trying to keep your head straight to really consider the right factors seems to me as something that would be not the easiest thing to do.
No, it wasn't. I think, between the several publishers we went to, I think what made me decide to go at Universal was the fact that the A&R at the publishing company was very sincere with me, and she was a friend to me, and we met actually online, and we built a relationship for 6 months prior to me signing, and this was prior to actually the Flo Rida cut coming out. So that showed to me like she just liked me as a human being, and we vibed on that kind of level where I have a thing about people kind of just hopping on the bandwagon just because you got something at the moment, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like true character is when somebody can believe in you and see something in you before anybody else does. And that was a part of that made me want to stay in the Universal world. Plus also, it's a huge company with huge reach, and that allowed me to, get things and opportunities that, that I probably wouldn't otherwise.
Not to mention any of the others that you didn't end up going with, but was that the biggest one that of the group that you were having discussions with?
Yeah. Okay. I mean,
it's hard to get it much bigger, so I'd imagine it was.
Yeah, I mean, there was Warner Chappell, and there was a lot of independent publishers as well. There was Sony ATV.
Wow, so you had all the big ones. Wow, that's really impressive.
Yeah, about 5 or 6 major publishers. And I think at that time, what publishers do, right, is they look at the charts, right? Like the top 10, the Hot 100. They're looking at that top 10, top 20, and they're looking at the writers. They're looking at who's making this music. And if they see a name they don't recognize, trust, they're trying to find you.
Okay, all right, that's good. That's interesting. So, and I think what's really impressive about this is that again, you were taking. It seemed that you were taking a little bit more of the long view. You weren't just trying to say yes to the first offer you had. You were really thinking, okay, what comes next? What comes after this offer? Because you hear about a lot of people get caught in some really bad deals, and they're flash in the pan, and that's it.
Yeah, and I think that I have to give a credit to the hustle mentality that I had in high school and singing on the street, and coming out to LA singing on the street is, I have to put that work in the effort in myself before anybody else does. I have to believe in myself before anybody else will. So I didn't want to wait on a Universal to give me anything. And until this day, that's how I work. That's how I operate. All the cuts that I've gotten, I would say 90% of them has been on my own hard work and energy. Now some came down for relationships. That's where the other 10% comes in, and but yeah, when I grind it and I go hard, I feel like nobody goes harder than me on that aspect to get stuff done.
Now, was there anything, just before we move on, in that time, as you were considering the different offers and signing and whatnot, is there anything that you would, looking back, do differently? Or was there a particular lesson maybe that you really, something that you didn't expect that you really, that really clarified things for you?
I think for me, understanding how the music business works in the sense of how to align myself to be, to have a company back then, and how to, just learn how the ins and outs of the business. I think I caught wind to that like 5 years in the business and realized that there was more than just, just writing yourself, but also building a company and a joint venture where you can have other writers and producers that can work. And I did that actually about 5 years after that deal I signed. I started, I created my own joint venture, and then I ended up signing a couple writers myself, which, made me realize and wisen up, what I'm saying? But early on, they don't tell you that kind of stuff of like how to, how, what's the key thing about publishing, and how does, splits work, and how you get paid, and all those different things are essential to earning money. So, yeah.
So you learn that literally as each one of those issues came up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think, learning how things work and learning how to, maneuver in this business too was very valuable to me. And like I said, over time, I began to go, it clicked to where, oh, I get it now, and I see how this person moves and how that person moves. And thank God for the A&Rs at the companies that that kind of put me on game as well.
All right. So let's talk about the big moment. Then you won a Grammy.
Yes. So, well, technically, how they word it is, I am a Grammy song-winning writer of a song that was won best remix recording by Madonna. So yes, I have to clarify.
You don't have the statue in your house, is what you're saying, but you were involved in.
I do not have the statue in my house.
But still.
I got a plaque, which is cool. It's nice and shiny. I'll take that. You know what I mean? But
that's got to be something. I mean, just bring me to the time when. I mean, I know you probably knew about the nomination and whatnot well in advance, but like, just given the grind that you did. I mean, performing on streets for 5 years. I think you mentioned potentially sleeping in cars and whatnot, almost giving up, and now you've got at least a part of what is the industry's greatest honor. Moment.
You want to know how the song was created, or do you want to know how up to the point where it's like nominated?
Let's talk about the nomination part first. That's where I'm at right now.
Okay, I got you. All right. In LA, I was in some session, I can't remember, and they put out the nominations online. 2010, Grammy nominations, and blessed to get nominated in a couple categories that year. There was one for Justin Bieber, I believe, for best pop album. And it was Flo Rida for best rap album, and then it was this Madonna's for best remix recording. So I was kind of on a bit of a high. I ain't even gonna lie to you, because to get 3 different categories in 1 year blew my mind completely. And I was like, yo, this is unreal. So I'm definitely, happy, but I knew that, my life wasn't changing, because it's still in my pocket, I still got to pay bills, you know what I'm saying? So I was still in studio sessions, still grinding it out, and didn't really let it get to me too much. And I remember I was in the car and we're heading to a session, and over the radio, Kiss FM, they said the winner for best remix recording was Revolver by Madonna, featuring Lil Wayne. And I tell you, man, I almost wrecked the car.
I can only imagine.
I was so floored that, like, this is happening. This is what you work for. This is what you grind hard for. And I got to the session, and I worked as hard as I could. That pushed me even more to write even more songs and even better songs.
Yeah, it's amazing how you take these things, like these big moments, and you're still very grounded in sort of the reality of what they might mean. It's like a lot of people could just spin out real quick, like they get the signing, or they get the the publishing deal, or they get the award, and it's like they get just so stuck up in that moment they don't necessarily think about the next step. But it seems like you've always had that eye towards, okay, what does this now open up, or what does this now mean, or what do I now need to prepare for?
Absolutely. I think that my mom stays in my head when it comes to these things of just like, shall pass, and that's That's good and bad, right? You know, get caught up in the moment, celebrate it, enjoy the things that you've done, but at the same time, don't let that end all be all for you. And I just realized when I was, you know, early in LA, watching a lot of my peers, you know, get the hit record and then kind of like lose it compared, you know, with being caught up in the Hollywood lifestyle. I just knew I didn't want that for myself. I wanted to have lasting power in the business.
That's interesting. That's interesting. Like this too shall pass. That not only the good things, but the bad things both eventually pass. That's a great perspective. Jump forward a little bit if I could. I know you also in your bio here you mentioned another life changing event in terms of some surgery that you had to have. Is that something you're open to talking about a little bit more?
Yeah, man. About 2.5 years ago, I was diagnosed with a tumor called ameloblastoma, which is a rare jaw tumor, and it, you know, was growing in my mouth for 2 years before I could even notice. And then went to the doctor, and they told me, like, you know, this is going to take a lot of recovery, and you know, we have to remove this tumor because eventually this will, you know, eat bone, and it's already eating a good portion of your bone, and but also eat facial tissue as well. So I mean, it definitely freaked me out, and it kind of left me at a place of like, what does that mean for my career? What does that mean for my singing voice? What does that mean for my life and how how I earn money? So I made a decision to move to Miami to be closer to a surgeon that I did not know who he was personally. I just Googled him, and I found out that he was one of the best surgeons in the country and deals with tumors. So I reached out to him and said, "Hey, man, I'm little old me, man. Could you take me as as a patient?" And he said yes, and thank God he did. And the doctors in LA was telling me about a year of recovery, but with this particular surgeon, he got me back up and running in 3 months.
And when you say up and running, you mean back and singing and writing again, or
Back singing and writing and performing as well. And that's with right with my right jaw removed. They had to take the jaw because it was so deteriorated by the tumor, and they replaced it with a titanium plate, and that's what I have until this day, and I'll have that for the rest of my life.
That's amazing. And this, if I'm not mistaken, sort of motivated you to have a bit of a career transition yourself. You've been writing primarily for others for up until this point. Yeah. This sort of motivated a solo singing career. Is that right?
It did, man. It really did. It made me see things completely different. I was realizing that I was giving myself away in a lot of these records that I would be writing for others, but not really replenishing who I am as a person and as a creative. And I think that allowed me to pump the brakes on, creating for others and start to really, find myself. And I started creating, and the first song I wrote, called Mad Love, was dedicated to my wife, and, for holding me down during that process. And, watching how people sent me messages and they loved the video and shared the video. And it's one of my highest streamed songs to this day. Just really made me realize, like, people really dig what I'm doing. And it completely changed my life in the way I think.
That's amazing. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about this, making the transition from songwriter to performer. We here at Royalty Exchange, we've worked with quite a few who have done that, and I've spoken with them afterwards, trying to get a better sense of, some of their motivations and whatnot. And the few that I spoke with, and I'd love to hear if this is your experience, and if not, that's totally fine. But they felt like they needed to have some kind of a separation from the work that they did as a songwriter versus what they were writing to perform for themselves.
Yeah, I agree with that. I needed something that was me. That was my art. You know what I mean? And for the longest time, I've always wanted to, perform and really showcase my talent. And I just didn't want that window to close on myself. I didn't And I wanted to also prove to myself that I could actually do it.
Was
I
it
think,
harder to write music that you were going to perform yourself versus writing music that you knew others were going to perform?
nah, I never had that problem, or I never had that issue of just like deciding what was what. Like when I write, I don't know why, but I just write like, and knock on wood, I feel like it just happens naturally. I think the only thing I kind of come in contact with is just the decision process of what to use and what not to use. But when it comes to creating for myself, it's just like writing for anyone else.
Interesting, but it's also a little more risky, right? I mean, like before, when you would write, you get a cut, known artist, you feel a little more secure in terms of the return, the revenue, the money that's gonna make for you and whatnot. It's a little, I mean, it's a little more dicey now, I would think, because trying to do it under your own name, it's a little bit of a steeper hill to kind of push up.
Yeah, but I think it's more rewarding to me. I think that yeah, it's a bit of a steeper climb, but I mean, because you don't have Justin Bieber's name in your credits to say, oh well, I wrote this new hot single for X, Y, and Z. But I feel like it's more rewarding in the sense of you're building your own legacy. And all these artists started from some place, right? And most people have a choice, to decide whether they want to, or at least the writers can decide whether they want to write for themselves or write for others. And I noticed that when I see people make the transition, and this is several friends of mine who have went on to have very successful artist careers, they make a conscious decision to not to not write for other people and to focus on themselves. And that's kind of decision. That's a decision I had to make and go, you know what? I have to put myself first. And it doesn't matter how long it's going to take. And even if I have 30 diehard fans, those 30 fans are worth it to me than having people hear a song that I wrote, having millions of people hear a song that I wrote, because those 30 fans are really going to love what I do and going to follow my career and my life throughout.
Okay, all right. So tell us, what are you working on now? What's going on with you at present?
Well, right now, new single that's going to be dropping on April 24th. It's right now up for pre-order everywhere. Well, on iTunes, excuse me, specifically. It's called Do It Again. It's featuring Shawn Stockman from Boyz II Men. So it's really, I ain't even gonna lie, it's one of the dopest songs I've ever done.
Okay.
And to have a legend like Shawn, from the iconic Boyz II Men collaborate with me on this record is extremely humbling. So it's up for pre-order right now on iTunes, and I'm just so honored about it. And this song is gonna be a big record for me, so I'm really happy about it.
And have you been performing? Have you been? We're going to get into the current situation here in a second, but like, have you been out doing the live thing?
Not at this point. I mean, yes, I perform in other places, but due to everything shutting down, not yet. But I will be doing some type of in-home concert kind of thing. So I'll definitely be showcasing the record and doing it live and letting everybody know what it's about.
Yeah. So we could end, if you don't mind, by just sort of talking about where we are right now. I want to just quickly harken back to something you mentioned earlier, which was this too shall pass, right? Like, we're in a moment that we're all right in the middle of, but I think we all know that it will eventually pass. So how are you? I mean, this affects everybody in the music industry a little bit differently depending on where they are. For those that are primarily performers, it's very, very difficult at the moment. Certainly taking a huge part of their financial lifeline away from them. Yes. But I can only imagine, for songwriters who thrive on collaboration in the studio and whatnot, it's equally difficult.
Yeah, it is. It is, because I think some of the best songs come from collaboration. Getting a couple people in the room and just, with some instruments and saying, hey, make something from your soul, and so I do miss that aspect of people getting together and creating. But I think that, this will also bring out the best material in this kind of self quarantine, self isolation that we're going through. I think us as creatives, we're going to be able to make some of the best material the world has ever heard.
Well, for one, I'm looking forward to hearing what that is once this kind of gets done. Is there any closing thoughts you'd like to, share? Any, lessons, pieces of advice you'd like to get at people, things, anything you want to promote, anything like that?
Yeah, actually, that leads to what I'm going to be talking about a lot more during podcasts and interviews is I created an R&B record label that's specifically for R&B music, for rhythm and blues. And I feel like, R&B is so underrepresented at the moment. And I'm not referring to hip hop R&B. I'm referring to R&B in itself as its own genre. I got tired of, seeing things happen and change and not being a part of, keeping the fabric of R&B alive. So I wanted to do something about it. So I created this label that's really about, like I said, bringing R&B back to the forefront, which I will be doing. And I have an artist by the name of Anye, who's one of my first signings. And we're going to be dropping some great music for you guys. And I'm going to be posing the question, do you miss R&B, to a lot of people, because I feel like it's kind of lost as an art form. I feel like we've kind of lost our identity, and it's, I want to bring it back.
What's the name of this label?
It is called Big Circle Music Group.
Big Circle Music Group. And this is something I always used to do back when I was a reporter. So how did you come to that name?
Because Full Circle was taken. I don't know. True story. But
that's enough.
Yeah, that was basically it. My wife and I were sitting in the living room, and I like the idea of full circle because I felt there's a mantra that I always say is that everything comes around full circle, which means, the same people you meet in the beginning is who you'll meet the second time around, but sometimes it's even better than the first time. But then I started to kind of, expand on that by calling it a big circle. And this big circle, no matter how long it takes, you're still going to meet some people that can eventually, change your life and change their life and, have more allies in this music thing.
Well, that's good to know. And I hope, wish you the best of luck with that. And what was the name of that first artist that you mentioned again?
Her name is Anye. So it's Aunyae.
Okay.
You can look out. She has a cover of Memories by Maroon 5. You can check that out. Also you can check out a couple teasers for my new single, Do It Again, online right at the moment on my Instagram, and you can follow me under Jackie's Boy. So yeah, man, I try to stay extremely busy.
Well, I got to tell you, man, it's been really wonderful talking to you. This has been the highlight of, I would even say, my week. So thank you so much for taking the time with me. And good luck to you and yours during this isolation time. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you. And likewise, man, stay healthy, stay safe.
Okay, bye now.
Thanks for joining us. You can keep up with Carlos and his upcoming release by following his social media profiles linked in the show notes. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a brand new episode, so be sure to subscribe and join us then. Stay safe, and we'll see you next time.